Immediately after Jaga and Kola sprayed the evil charm and opened the coffin, they began bickering like two hungry dogs over a single bone about who would first sleep with the corpse of the queen. Their heated argument filled the cold, eerie room when, suddenly, the queen's eyes snapped open. She stared at them with a fiery rage that could melt iron. The queen, known far and wide for her quick temper and zero tolerance for nonsense, shot upright and barked, "Who are you people and how did I get here?" Jaga and Kola froze, their faces as white as ghosts. They were ready to sprint for their lives, but they hesitated when they realized the queen was very much alive. Jaga and Kola, still trembling, decided to ask the queen some questions. Their hearts pounded like drums in their chests as they tried to make sense of the surreal situation. The queen, her mind a foggy haze, couldn't recall how she ended up in the hospital. She only remembered having a slice of orange the night before she slept. "The only thing I remember is the slice of orange I had before I slept," she said, her voice sharp with a mixture of anger and frustration. The memory dangled just out of reach, like a shadow at the edge of her consciousness, teasing but not revealing itself fully. As she struggled to piece together her memory, she continued, and. She paused, her brow furrowed in concentration. Suddenly, her eyes widened with realization, like a storm breaking over a calm sea. "I was the Queen of Poma. The King of Poma isn't the rightful owner of the throne. I know his secret, that's why he..." She trailed off, the truth hanging heavy in the air like a dense fog. "I guess that's why he put me here," she finished, her voice tinged with both fear and determination. Jaga and Kola exchanged bewildered glances. The room seemed to grow colder as the weight of the queen's words settled over them. They had stumbled into a mystery far greater than they had bargained for, and the shadows of the past were closing in around them. She began to narrate the full story to Jaga and Kola, her voice carrying them back in time like a river flowing through the memories of the past. "In the village of Poma," she started, her eyes distant, "there was a man named Bala. Bala was one of the servants of young King Larger, a king who had no queen. Bala, being the head of the servants, had access to many things in the palace and was somewhat close to the king. His loyalty was unquestionable, and his service was impeccable. Bala also had a sister who served in the palace alongside him, tending to the needs of King Larger and his court." The queen's voice grew softer, tinged with sorrow. Bala's sister was a kind and gentle soul, loved by all who knew her. She brought warmth to the cold stone walls of the palace with her laughter and kindness. Little did Bala know that their lives were about to be shattered by the very man they served so faithfully. Jaga and Kola listened intently, the room growing quieter with each word as the queen's tale of loyalty, betrayal, and dark secrets unfolded. King Larger was a tyrant. He had a cruel habit of taking any female servant he fancied, having sex with them without regard for their will. One fateful day, his vile desires fell upon Bala's sister. He forced himself on her, his brutality knowing no bounds, and in his savage act, he mistakenly killed her during the hard sex. The king always committed these heinous acts in secrecy, swearing the servants to silence under the threat of death. But this time, his cruelty had crossed a line. Bala's sister died during the violent assault. King Larger, never having faced such a consequence before, panicked. He fled the scene and summoned Bala, ordering him to dispose of the girl's body in the deep forest. When Bala arrived and saw his sister lying lifeless in the king's room, he was devastated. Tears streamed down his face, but he quickly wiped them away, fearing the king's wrath if he discovered that the girl was Bala's sister. With a heavy heart and rage simmering beneath the surface, Bala carried his sister's body into the forest, vowing silently to avenge her death. As Bala carried his dead sister through the dark, twisted paths of the forest, his heart burned with a fiery resolve. The shadows of the trees seemed to whisper to him, echoing his oath for vengeance. He swore to bring justice to the king, even if it cost him his own life. His soul was consumed by a storm of rage and sorrow. Deep within the heart of the forest, the air grew thick and heavy with an otherworldly presence. The spirits of the forest, ancient and malevolent, sensed Bala's fury. They were drawn to his dark determination like moths to a flame. As Bala stumbled through the undergrowth, his foot struck something hard. He looked down and saw a gem glowing faintly in the moonlight. The gem shimmered with an eerie light, pulsing with dark energy. Bala, driven by desperation and anger, reached out and grasped it. Instantly, a surge of power coursed through his veins, filling him with an otherworldly strength. The spirits of the forest whispered their secrets to him, granting him the ability to shapeshift and a deadly power, the ability to put people into a deep coma that could last for eternity, unless another dark force intervened or Bala himself reversed it. With this newfound power, Bala felt invincible. He knew that his path to revenge had been set, and he would stop at nothing to see the tyrant king fall. The forest spirits had given him the tools he needed, and now it was time to use them. The night was alive with the promise of retribution, and Bala, now more than ever, was determined to fulfill his vow. Bala returned to the palace, now a powerful servant with a heart full of vengeance. His steps were silent, but his resolve was unbreakable. He went straight to King Larger, ready to enact his retribution. As he entered the dining hall, he found the king feasting on a meal prepared by the servant Arbar. The king, engrossed in his gluttony, sent Arbar to fetch a glass of wine. Seizing the moment, Bala approached the king. With a single thought, he activated his newfound power, and his form began to shift. His features melted and reformed until he was an exact duplicate of King Larger. The Real King looked up, eyes widening in horror at the sight of his own doppelganger. He opened his mouth to scream, but before he could make a sound, Bala acted. Arbar returned with the wine and froze in the doorway, her eyes darting between the two identical figures. The room crackled with tension as Bala locked eyes with the true king and unleashed the second power of the gem. A dark force enveloped the king, and his body slumped to the floor, plunged into a deep coma. Since Arbar had witnessed the entire scene, Bala knew he had to act quickly to avoid being implicated. He attempted to use the same dark charm on her, but to his shock, it failed. The charm, bound by the sinister rules of the spirits, could only be used once every 7 years. The spirits had conveniently omitted this crucial detail, delighting in the chaos they had sown. Realizing the charm's limitations, Bala, still in the form of King Larger, turned to Arbar. His voice was cold and menacing. "You will say nothing of what you've seen here, Arbar. If you breathe a word of this to anyone, I will kill you instantly." The threat hung in the air, as sharp and dangerous as a predator's fang. To ensure her silence and keep her close, Bala made a calculated promise. "In return for your silence, I will make you the Queen of Poma," he declared. The offer was both a bribe and a trap, designed to bind Arbar to his will. Desperate and fearful for her life, Arbar agreed. Together, under the cover of night, they carried the comatose king into the depths of the far forest. The moonlight filtered through the trees, casting ghostly shadows as they dug a grave. They buried King Larger alive, his true form hidden away from the world, a dark secret shared by only the two of them. With the real king entombed and Arbar sworn to silence, Bala solidified his grip on the throne. The palace and the kingdom at large were none the wiser, believing the deception that had taken root in their midst. Bala, now masquerading as King Larger, prepared to rule with a cunning and ruthless hand, while Arbar, haunted by the knowledge of the truth, was drawn deeper into his web of lies and manipulation. Bala made a grand announcement, declaring that Arbar was to be the new queen. The kingdom celebrated, unaware of the dark truth behind this sudden change. Arbar, adorned in royal garments, stood beside Bala, her eyes scanning the faces of the courtiers and servants. Despite her new title, a gnawing curiosity ate at her. Who was the real king? The question lingered in her mind, refusing to be silenced. Arbar, driven by this burning question, began her own quiet investigation. She observed Bala closely, noting his behaviors and habits, comparing them to what she knew of the real King Larger. She scoured the palace for clues, hoping to uncover the truth behind Bala's facade. But as time passed, her efforts yielded little, and the constant fear of Bala's wrath began to weigh heavily on her. Reluctantly, she abandoned her search, choosing to embrace her new life as queen. From a mere servant, Arbar had risen to a position of power and luxury. She enjoyed the opulence and reverence that came with being queen, a stark contrast to her previous life. The palace, with its grand halls and lavish feasts, became her domain, and she relished the change in her fortunes. However, Bala's paranoia grew with each passing day. The knowledge that Arba knew his secret was a thorn in his side. Almost every night, he attempted to use his dark power on her, hoping to silence her forever. But each attempt ended in failure. The charm, bound by its own rules, refused to work on Arba again so soon after its first use. Bala's frustration mounted, and he tried several times, each time failing to achieve his sinister goal. Despite his best efforts, Arba remained untouched by his dark powers, her presence a constant reminder of his deceit. Bala's discomfort grew, knowing that his secret was not entirely safe. Arba, though outwardly compliant, held a hidden strength and resilience that kept her alive and in her position. And so, under the glittering facade of the palace, a silent battle of wills played out between the false king and his queen, each holding their cards close to their chest, waiting for the next move in their dangerous game. After 7 long years, the original King Larger remained in a deep, unbroken coma, hidden away from the world. During this time, Bala had ruled the kingdom with an iron fist, his disguise as the true king fooling everyone except Arba. She alone knew the truth, a secret that weighed heavily on both of them. The years had been kind to Bala in terms of power and control, but the constant threat of his secret being exposed gnawed at him. The knowledge that Arba held the key to his downfall kept him on edge, a dark cloud over his reign. Every day, Bala's mistrust of Arba grew, knowing that her silence was the only thing keeping his charade alive. Though he had ascended to the throne and enjoyed the luxuries and respect that came with it, Bala could never fully relax. The fear of being discovered haunted him, making him more paranoid and ruthless. He ruled with a heavy hand, ensuring that no one dared to challenge his authority or dig too deeply into the past. Arba, on the other hand, played her part well. She embraced her role as queen, her beauty and grace endearing her to the people. But beneath her composed exterior, she harbored the dark knowledge of Bala's true identity. The memory of the real king, buried alive, never left her mind. It was a silent torment, a secret that bound her to Bala yet also kept her distant from him. As the years passed, the uneasy truce between Bala and Arba held firm. Bala, constantly vigilant, kept a close eye on her, his trust in her never solidifying. He knew that the fragile peace they maintained could shatter at any moment, and the fear of retribution from the true king, should he ever awaken, loomed over him like a spectre. And so, the kingdom of Poma continued to flourish under the reign of a false king, the dark secrets of the past buried deep, waiting for the day they would inevitably resurface. One night, after Arba had finished drinking her orange, she prepared to retire for the evening. As she was about to drift off to sleep, Bala crept into her chambers, his heart pounding with malicious intent. This time, he was determined to succeed where he had failed so many times before. He unleashed his dark power upon her, and to his grim satisfaction, Arba instantly fell into a deep coma. Bala's face twisted into a cruel smile as he watched her lifeless form. He had finally rid himself of the one person who knew his secret. Morning came, and with a feigned expression of concern, he summoned the palace doctor. The doctor examined Arba and, with a grave expression, announced that she had died in her sleep. Bala, still wearing the guise of a grieving husband, arranged for her body to be taken to the hospital. He assured the doctor that they would collect her corpse the next day for a proper royal burial. As the day progressed, the palace was filled with somber whispers and mourning for the queen. Bala, however, felt a dark glee within him. The thorn in his side had finally been removed, and with Arba gone, his secret was safe. Or so he thought. The night seemed to stretch on endlessly, filled with a haunting stillness. The weight of the past 7 years pressed heavily on Bala, but for the first time in a long while, he felt a twisted sense of relief. Yet, unknown to him, the wheels of fate were still turning, and the events set in motion by his actions were far from over. The secrets buried deep in the forest and the lies woven into the fabric of the kingdom would soon resurface, bringing with them a reckoning that Bala could not foresee. In a distant village, far from the grandeur of Poma, lived 2 men named Jaga and Kola. Life had been harsh and unforgiving to them, and they were desperate for a change in fortune. Their desperation led them to seek out an infamous herbalist known for his dark and powerful rituals. The herbalist, a man with eyes as cold as a snake's, listened to their pleas for wealth. After a long silence, he finally spoke, his voice a low and menacing whisper. "There is a way to gain immense riches," he said. "But it comes at a great cost. You must sleep with a fresh corpse. Only then will the spirits bless you with the wealth you seek." Jaga and Kola exchanged uneasy glances, but their greed and desperation overshadowed their fear. They agreed to the ritual, willing to do anything to escape their impoverished lives. The herbalist handed them a small vial filled with a dark, murky liquid. "This is an evil charm," he explained. "Spray it over the corpse before you proceed. It will bind the spirits to grant you the wealth you desire." With the vial clutched tightly in their hands, Jaga and Kola left the herbalist's hut, their minds swirling with a mixture of dread and anticipation. The journey that lay ahead of them was fraught with darkness and danger, but they were resolute in their quest for riches. Jaga and Kola, driven by their desperation, eventually heard a piece of crucial information that solidified their plan. There was a hospital in Poma known for always having fresh corpses. Their hearts pounded with a mixture of fear and excitement as they made their way to the hospital under the cover of night. Upon arriving at the hospital, they stealthily slipped past the guards and made their way to the morgue. The room was cold, and the air was thick with the scent of antiseptic and death. The dim lighting cast eerie shadows on the walls, heightening their sense of dread. As they scanned the room, their eyes fell upon a body draped in royal garments. It was Queen Reby, lying still and lifeless on a metal slab. They approached her, the vial of the evil charm clutched tightly in Jaga's hand. As they sprayed the charm, a shiver ran through the air. Ryby's eyes snapped open, and she sat up with a gasp. Her sudden movement and the life returning to her eyes were like a lightning bolt in the dark room. Jaga and Kola stumbled backward, their faces pale with shock and fear. Queen Reby, her face contorted with confusion and anger, glared at them. "What are you doing?" she demanded, her voice echoing with a mixture of rage and bewilderment. The two men were speechless, their plan unraveling before their eyes. They had expected a lifeless body, not a queen brought back from the brink. The room seemed to grow colder, and the shadows deeper, as they realized they were in the presence of something far more powerful and mysterious than they had anticipated. For a moment, silence hung heavy in the air, and then, realizing that their only chance was to explain and seek her aid, Jaga spoke, his voice trembling. We were told to sleep with a fresh corpse to gain riches," he confessed. "But we never expected you to wake up. Please, we didn't mean any harm." Reby, still regaining her bearings, looked at them with a mixture of pity and anger. Her mind raced as she pieced together her own predicament and the twisted fate that had brought these two men to her side. She knew now that her awakening was no mere coincidence and that the dark forces at play were far from done with her or the kingdom of Poma. Back to the present, Queen Reby, now fully aware of the strange events that had led to her deep sleep, sensed a sinister pattern. She realized that Bala had used the same dark charm on her that he had used on the real king. Though she didn't know who the real king was, she felt an overwhelming need to uncover the truth. Turning to Jaga and Kola, who were still reeling from their unexpected encounter, she pleaded for their help. Her voice, though tinged with the authority of her royal status, carried a desperate urgency. "Jaga, Kola, I beg of you, assist me in uncovering the truth. The man who sits on the throne is not the rightful king. The real king lies in a coma, hidden away by the one who deceived us all. I need to find him and restore justice to Poma." Jaga and Kola, despite their initial intentions, were moved by the queen's plea. They had come seeking riches, but now they found themselves entangled in a quest for truth and justice. They exchanged a glance, a silent agreement passing between them. Whatever their past mistakes, they could not turn their backs on the queen in her time of need. "We will help you, your majesty," Kola said, his voice steady despite the gravity of their new mission. "Tell us what you need us to do." Ryby's eyes glimmered with a mix of hope and determination. "First, we must find where the real king is hidden. Bala buried him somewhere in the far forest, but I do know the exact location. But still, we will need to search for any clues that could lead us to his burial site. When they reached the spot where the real king had been buried for the last 7 years, the air was thick with anticipation and dread. Guided by the faint memories Reby had managed to piece together, they dug through the dense earth. As their shovels hit the coffin, a sense of eerie calm settled over them. With great care, they lifted the lid, revealing the body of King Larger. To their astonishment, the king's body had not decayed. He lay there, as if merely asleep, untouched by the passage of time. Not long, the king's eyes fluttered open, and he gasped, taking his first breath in 7 long years. Queen Reby knelt beside him, her eyes filled with relief and recognition. "You are the true King Larger," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. The king, disoriented but gradually remembering the events that led to his entombment, nodded weakly. As King Larja's strength returned, he recalled the betrayal and the dark charm that had plunged him into a coma. Determined to reclaim his throne and expose Bala's treachery, he joined forces with Reby, Jaga, and Kola. Together, they sought out the help of a powerful herbalist known for his wisdom and knowledge of ancient magic. The herbalist, a wizened old man with eyes that seemed to see into one's soul, listened intently to their story. After a long silence, he nodded and prepared a charm designed to reveal Bala's true nature. "This charm will expose the deceit," he said, handing them a small, intricately carved talisman. "But be warned, the false king will not give up his throne easily. You must be prepared for a battle of both wits and strength." Armed with the charm and fortified by their unity, the 4 of them returned to the Poma, ready to confront Bala and restore the true king to his rightful place. The air crackled with tension and the promise of justice as they stepped into the heart of the deception, determined to end the tyranny that had plagued their kingdom for too long. Later, with a well-devised plan and the charm in hand, Jaga, Reby, and the real King Larger set their trap. Jaga, posing as a stranger, sought an audience with the false king. The palace, still under Bala's deceptive rule, granted his request. Jaga was led into the grand hall, where Bala sat on the throne, draped in regal attire, his expression one of smug satisfaction. The hall was filled with courtiers and guards, all oblivious to the deception that had ruled over them for so long. Jaga approached the throne with a confident stride, his heart pounding with the weight of what was about to unfold. "Your Majesty," Jaga began, bowing deeply, "I bring news of great importance and a gift from a distant land." Bala, intrigued, leaned forward, his eyes glinting with curiosity. As Jaga spoke, he subtly retrieved the talisman from his robe. In a swift, fluid motion, Jaga sprayed the charm directly onto Bala's face. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The courtiers gasped in shock as Bala's true visage began to emerge, the illusion of King Larger melting away like shadows before the dawn. His face twisted and contorted, revealing the deceitful servant beneath the royal guise. "Seize him!" Jaga shouted. "He is not the real king," his voice ringing through the hall. The guards, momentarily stunned, quickly recovered and rushed to obey. Bala, now exposed, tried to resist, but his efforts were in vain. He was overpowered and restrained, his reign of deception and tyranny brought to an abrupt end. The real King Larger stepped forward, his presence commanding and regal. The hall fell silent as he addressed the assembly. "People of Poma," he proclaimed, "the truth has been revealed. I am your true king, and this man," he gestured to Bala, "has deceived us all. But justice has prevailed." Cheers erupted throughout the hall as the realization sank in. The true king had returned, and with him, hope and justice. Bala, now a prisoner, was led away to face the consequences of his treachery. With the false king dethroned, King Larger ascended the throne once more. The kingdom of Poma celebrated the return of their true ruler. Peace and prosperity were restored, and the shadows of deceit that had darkened the land were dispelled. Bala was beheaded for his crimes, and the kingdom of Poma rejoiced in the return of justice. King Larger, grateful for the unwavering support of Reby, Jaga, and Kola, ensured that Reby continued her role as queen. He also enriched Jaga and Kola, rewarding them handsomely for their crucial assistance in restoring him to the throne. However, peace in the kingdom was short-lived. The chief, a respected elder with great influence, had uncovered the dark truth behind King Larja's past. Rumors had always swirled, But now undeniable evidence surfaced. King Larger had indeed raped a young servant girl to death, an act that had driven Bala to seek his terrible revenge. The revelation sent shockwaves through the kingdom. The people, who had just celebrated the return of their rightful ruler, were now faced with the horrifying truth of his past misdeeds. The Council of Elders, led by the chief, convened to address the matter. After much deliberation, they concluded that such a grave crime could not go unpunished, regardless of the king's recent heroic return. King Larger was stripped of his title and exiled from the village. The once proud king, now a fallen figure, left Poma under the watchful eyes of the people he had once ruled. His departure was marked by a mix of sorrow and relief, as the kingdom sought to heal from the wounds of betrayal and deceit. Queen Arba, whose strength and wisdom had guided her through the darkest of times, was chosen to continue ruling Poma. Her ascension to the throne was met with widespread support. Under her reign, the kingdom flourished. She brought a new era of justice, compassion, and prosperity to the land, ensuring that the mistakes of the past were not repeated. Jaga and Kola, forever grateful for their new fortunes and status, returned to their hometown with a new life and no longer thinking of money ritual again. They are now wealthy. And so, the kingdom of Poma moved forward, learning from its history and striving for a brighter future under the wise and benevolent rule of Queen Arba. The tales of treachery and redemption became legends, reminding future generations of the importance of integrity, courage, and the enduring power of truth. The story of King Larger and Bala, with their rise and fall, became a cautionary tale in Poma. It warned against the dangers of greed, betrayal, and the abuse of power. The people remembered how even the mightiest could be brought low by their actions, and how redemption and justice could be achieved through unity and bravery. As the sun set over the vibrant and prosperous kingdom, the echoes of the past served as a guiding light for the future, ensuring that the lessons learned would never be forgotten. The kingdom of Poma moved forward, stronger and wiser, with a commitment to uphold the values that had restored peace and prosperity to their land. Please subscribe to African Folktales Spot for more interesting stories like this one. See you soon.